All right, we're gonna be as quiet as we can because it is like 2 in the morning on a Monday and I have work. And everyone's gonna hate me if I'm filming out here from this early in the morning, late in the night, whatever. So the suspension's done. We've got our shock and spring set up here, which is height adjustable, so we'll be able to kind of equal it out. Right now it's kind of set at the full droop. So we've got the adjustable camber rods and tow rods top and bottom, so we'll be able to get that aligned once we actually get it rolling and can drive it to the shop, because there's no point. I can drive like a mile on a bad setup, it's fine, but I can check with a digital gauge to kind of figure out what I need. And over here, and basically what this is I'm getting a strap for a travel limit strap, and some of the rally guys actually use chains all the time, but basically I'm just using a chain to temporarily hold it in place, so I don't need the jack to support it. And then once I get the straps in the right length and figure out where I'm going to mount to, if I'm mounting that bolt or if I'm going to put a mount into the frame and figure out what I'm going to do there. But that is it. The suspension is done in the rear and done in the front, i.e. it is all done. And that basically completes our drivetrain too. Awesome. Alright, so I cut it with the plasma cutter, and I'm not particularly skilled with the plasma cutter yet. But it's tacked in place right now. This is where we cut out, many episodes ago, we cut out our crash bar so that we could clear the alternator and everything here, and the tensioner and all that. So pretty much you can see how we notched our frame rail so we could clear all the belts and pulleys and everything. So now we need to close that back up, and we're finally getting around to it now. Plasma cut this out of a box section, cleaned it up as best we could considering the hour and the annoyance of my neighbors. And then now we're going to go ahead and full weld it in place. A little bit hard to see because it's all black now, but got it all welded. Paint is still wet, so it needs to dry. And we used VHT roll bar chassis paint, or roll bar and chassis paint. So it's good up to high temps, 250 degrees, which is plenty for where it is on the front. So nothing's bolted together yet, but we're just checking radiator fitment. And it's really not bad, even with the full-size radiator. Now, I'm trying to keep it as far left as possible, because right back here is where the turbo is, and if we take a look, and so it is pretty tight. Nothing's touching. The closest point is right here, which is about 3/16 of an inch. If I lean the radiator forward a little bit, we get up to what, like 1.5 inches from our fan, which is definitely really good. And we may not need to do a custom shroud or anything like that, at least not in the beginning. We can upgrade to that later on, but we may have front grille clearance issues depending on how this front grille here bolts up. If we hang it a little higher and hopefully right off of this this brace here and tie everything into the frame, it should be pretty structurally sound. We'll have to figure out what we're going to do for the lower mounts of the radiator. We might need to tie in over here to sort of figure out what we're going to do there and brace down. So this first picture is how our lower mounting point turned out. Basically, we tied in off the crash bar lower mount, and we extended it forward, and then we welded in our GSX factory radiator mounts to the cross tube. We needed to get this in place in order to set our final position for the top mounts. So this is all facing downward. This is our radiator core support, and we don't want that collecting dirt, water, moisture, anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and seal it up with a little square cap. And we'll do the same thing on the other side too. So just like that, we'll get it tacked, welded in place, and then we can paint the entire thing with some nice roll bar and chassis paint. All right, so this side's done. Still hot, that's why I burned my glove just now. So we're gonna let it dry and, well, not dry. We're gonna let it cool off, and then we're gonna paint it. Got to finish up the other side, and then we're done with this part, which is cool. Yep. So we've got this little step in there now. Alright, I need to re-drill this hole because I did it, but the bend was too high, so the screw that we would need wouldn't have been able to clear that bend. So we had to shift it down a little bit. Which is not a huge worry. We'll just have to trim our piece slightly on the bottom so it doesn't cause the bumper not to sit flat. But that gets us set up there. And now we can get the bottom in place. Put our mark. Now back to the drill press to drill that hole right on the bottom of that circle. I took the grommet out to match for the other one. We need to go pick up a second grommet. Other than that, these are done. Put the screws in. Haven't put it on this side yet. Need to put the grommet in, but whatever. This one's pretty much bolted up. You can see it's pretty much spot on. Radiator clearance is pretty tight. We've got about 1 millimeter on the very edge there. But, you know, if we need to trim back more, hell, we can cut off this whole piece right here. It's not a huge deal. And that's how it's bolted up, that weird looking Torx screw, and then down here Torx screw that holds the bumper on. The bumper fits, clears everything. It is pretty tight in the back, and we did have to notch to clear the bottom bumper, but again, not a huge deal. So I'm trying to figure out the radiator hoses, and hilariously enough, the ones off the GSX, they don't really fit. The angles got too scrunched, so they just kink, even though that's kind of like a universalish bendy line. And that one's disgusting. Like, just, it's so, I tried cleaning it, but I mean, it's just disgusting and like falling apart and slimy and gross and sticky. So I went over to the spare parts section of the garage, and the most hilarious thing is I found the old Genesis Coupe radiator hoses, and not only are they the perfect size, but with the angles that they have, it's like perfect on the radiator. I'm gonna cut it down here in a second, but this car is now made from Toyota, not Honda yet, but yeah, Toyota Yaris / Toyota Prius coil packs with their own igniters, so 4 wires. Obviously GSX engine and clutch, got a lot of mini parts on here. Now it's gonna have some Hyundai parts, which is absolutely hilarious. So it's really going to be kind of a worldly car. So we've already got Korea, Japan, Germany, England. All right, so this is our throttle cable. We've just got it right now tech screwed or self-tapping metal screws going into the firewall. It's going through and into the pedal, and we've got all this cable to play with. Now obviously that's way too much cable. We don't need it. If we did use it, it would probably look Something like that, and we don't need a roller coaster in here. From what I measured before, the throttle body sits somewhere in here, so we could just come right out of this plastic and straight into the throttle body. That would be the simplest, but once the engine's back in, I'll be able to check the angles and see what I actually need to do versus obviously what I can do. If I do need to use the entire cable in its entirety, and I think I should be able to just pull this out and then cut the cable and then pull this fitting out, put it in the other side, and then be able to do that, do hickory. We'll get all that stuff back together. The other thing that we did, we got our OEM clutch line coming through here. Basically, we flipped it. It used to go to the driver's side. Now it's going to the passenger side. We've bent this. We've rerouted it. Soft line. We put an addle clamp here. Left this rubber thingy in there where it used to clip to something, but now it's just a little bushing to kind of space it off the firewall. And it comes back here, around, down, goes to another clip, and then we use a line cutter to cut it here. And this is it's 6 millimeters, so whatever that is. Line. I have fittings for brakes. I thought it was the same, but no. So I'll have to run to the parts store tomorrow and pick up some bigger fittings for that, and then I can flare it and connect it to stainless steel clutch line from here, and then measure up all the way down to the slave cylinders somewhere in this vicinity. But we'll be able to do that. We'll cut this piece off for the booster. It's like a super hard plastic line that they like shrink tubed on there or something. So we'll just cut that off and then put a regular hose going there, going down, and through our little fake manifold porty thing. So we're really just we want this to be the last time we pull the engine, so we're working to make sure that whatever we have to do, things like routing the clutch line, we'll probably see if we can do our wiring for our fuse box. So we'll see if we can extend all these wires from this harness and extend it over to this side, and we'll relocate our fuse box somewhere over here. Once again, not 100% sure where, but as long as we extend those harnesses to reach over here, that'll be much better, and we don't have to worry about trying to do all the wiring back there while everything's still in with the engine in place, which is more annoying. We'll have to obviously fix our bolt issue back here, level off this piece here, basically just raise it up about between 3/8 and 1/2 inch, raise that side up so that this thing will be perfectly level. That was our issue with fitment before. As you can see, it's not perfectly level, so that was causing us some grief trying to get the motor mounts aligned. Other than that, we'll have to close up spots like this and like this so that we don't get anything inside there that corrodes. And then all this stuff should be fine. It's just maybe put some weld in there to kind of close it up so that, again, no dirt or corrodants get stuck in there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The fuel line's pretty flexible, so we'll be able to put that wherever we want. Heater hoses are cut and ready to go. Radiator hoses, everything else is good to go. Power steering's good to go. Yeah, that throttle cable was really annoying, but now that we've got it all the way off, we can cut our notch and then get our plastic covering back on for that separation between all the other crap. I guess that's to keep the heat out. So here's a little bit of a mishap for you guys, somewhat embarrassing. So something I didn't consider. So I got the brackets from the Mini hooked up. I got them welded into the bracket, just tacked right now, into the bracket for the GSX. And I got this kind of hooked up, and I finally got it to shift right and everything. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Got tacked in place. Figured out how to get all the angles changed. And, well, I messed it up, but let me show you guys. So just hopping in the passenger seat. Well, obviously it's not the 1 through 6, it's a 5-speed. But what I ended up doing is, that's first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and that's the reverse lockout. That's reverse. So I got the gears backwards. Have to come up with something crafty, pivot, pulley system, which really sucks. This was the easy one to hook up, and this was the really hard one. So at least the hard one's right, but again, that just sucks. So I need to somehow pull some Project Binky craziness and flip reverse turned upside down and become the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Something like that, who knows.